Mira had always lived in a world made of glass, shiny on the outside, fragile on the inside. People saw her wealth, her empire, her sharp confidence, but no one ever saw the loneliness living behind her expensive walls. I stepped into her life on a cold Monday morning, assigned as her new personal bodyguard after a series of threatening messages had shaken her security team. I expected a demanding employer, a proud businesswoman who kept people at a distance. I did not expect someone whose silence carried sadness, someone whose eyes held storms she never allowed to break. The first day, she barely spoke to me. She only nodded when I walked beside her through the hallways of her company. Her heels clicked sharply on marble floors, announcing her power, while mine moved soundlessly, a shadow following her. But even on the first day, I noticed small things: the way her fingers trembled when she signed documents, the way she looked out the window as if searching for someone she lost long ago, the way she tightly held herself as if afraid she might fall apart. My job was simple: protect her, stay close, never get emotionally involved. I had trained for this my whole life, building walls around my own heart. Yet every time I saw her alone with her thoughts, something cracked inside me. One evening, we returned from a meeting late. The city lights flickered outside the car window, painting her face in soft gold. She looked tired, beautiful, but exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with work. I could feel her watching me through the reflection on the glass. When our eyes met, she looked away quickly, as if afraid I might read something she wasn't ready to reveal. Slowly, days turned into weeks. We began sharing small conversations. She asked about my training. I asked about her business. She laughed once, soft, unexpected, and the sound stayed with me long after our talk ended. I knew I was falling for her long before I admitted it to myself. It was in the little things: the way I stepped closer whenever someone came near her, the way I stayed awake longer just to be sure she slept safely, the way my heart beat faster whenever she softly said my name. But Mira was a woman who had everything except trust. She kept her heart locked away, giving no one the key. I never expected her to notice me beyond my duty. Yet she did. The real change began on a night when a threatening message slipped through her private email: detailed, violent, personal. She froze as she read it, her breath shaking in her chest. When she handed me the phone, she tried to appear strong, but her hands trembled like leaves in the wind. Without thinking, I stepped closer and gently held her wrist, grounding her. For a moment, she didn't pull away. She simply closed her eyes, letting herself lean into the comfort. From that night on, she invited me to stay closer. She insisted I accompany her on late meetings, on business trips, even on quiet dinners where she barely ate and mostly stared at the stars. And somehow, her silence began to feel like a language I could finally understand. One night during a storm, the power went out in her mansion. She found me checking the security cameras manually, ready to respond to any danger. Instead of returning to her room, she stayed near me, watching the rain run down the windows. Lightning flashed, and she whispered that storms scared her. It was the first personal thing she had ever shared. I offered her my jacket when she shivered, and she accepted it with a soft, almost shy smile. We sat there together, listening to thunder. For the first time, we weren't a rich woman and her bodyguard. We were two lonely hearts who had found each other in the dark. The inevitable breaking point came a week later. Someone attempted a break-in at her house. I rushed to her room the moment I heard glass shatter. She stood frozen in panic. Without hesitation, I wrapped my arm around her, shielding her with my body as I pushed her into the far corner of the room. My heart thundered as footsteps echoed in the hall. When the threat was finally neutralized by the team, Mira collapsed into my arms, shaking uncontrollably. She didn't care that her expensive dress was torn or that her reputation demanded perfect composure. She held on to me like I was the only safe place in her world. I held her back, unable to hide the emotions I had fought for weeks. When she finally pulled away, her hand lingered on my cheek, soft and trembling. The next few days, she avoided me, not out of anger, but fear. I could see it in her eyes. She had felt something too, something she didn't know how to name. And I had fallen too deeply. I kept my distance, thinking it was the right thing to do. My job wasn't to love her. It was to protect her. But love doesn't follow rules. One night, rain poured heavily as I drove her home from a late meeting. The air was thick with unspoken words. She watched me from the corner of her eye, her chest rising and falling unevenly. At a traffic light, She finally spoke, her voice softer than the rain. You protect me from everything, she said. But who protects you? No one had ever asked me that. Not even I had asked myself. My throat tightened. I told her the truth. I told her that protecting her didn't feel like a job anymore. It felt like breathing, necessary, natural. I confessed that I cared for her more than I should. I expected silence, maybe dismissal, maybe anger. Instead, she reached across the seat and took my hand, her fingers cold but steady. I've been trying not to fall for you, she whispered, but I already have. The rain kept falling, but inside the car, the world stood still. From that night forward, nothing was the same. We didn't rush anything. Love grew quietly, soft touches, long glances, late-night conversations where she spoke about her fears and I told her mine. She was no longer just a wealthy woman hiding behind her success. She was human, tender, wounded, and learning to feel again. And I was no longer just her bodyguard. I became the person she trusted, the one she looked for in crowded rooms, the one she leaned on when her world felt too heavy. She once told me that I made her feel safe, not just physically, but emotionally, which was something she had never experienced before. I told her she made me feel seen in a world where I was trained to stay invisible. We built our own quiet world, not defined by roles or status, but by the simple truth that two hearts had found healing in each other. And for the first time in her life, and mine, love didn't feel like a luxury. It felt like a home.